Listen up. This ain't an ordinary message. This right here is for those who've been searching, wondering, asking God, are you talking to me? And I'm here to tell you, yes. But the problem is you're looking for a loud voice, a flashing sign, a big miracle, and you're missing the way he's already speaking to you. So today I'm breaking it down. 7 physical signs that God is speaking to you. Pay attention because this will surprise you. You ever feel something deep inside, that unshakable feeling that won't leave you alone? That's not just your conscience. That's not just intuition. That's God's whisper in your spirit telling you, go this way, move now, stop right there. The problem is you doubt it, you ignore it. But when you start trusting that voice inside, you start walking in purpose. You wanted that job. You prayed for that relationship. You were convinced that was your path. And then, boom, the door slams in your face. And you're mad at God. But listen, a closed door is not rejection. It's redirection. Stop banging on something God locked because he's protecting you from what you can't see. You ever feel like you can't sit still? Like something in your spirit is stirring, but you don't know why? That's God saying, I got more for you. But the question is, are you going to ignore the feeling and stay stuck, or are you going to move? Don't let fear keep you in a place God is trying to pull you out of. You ever look at the clock and it's 3:33, or you keep hearing the same scripture, the same message over and over again? That's not a coincidence. That's confirmation. God repeats himself when he's trying to get your attention. Stop brushing it off. Lean in and ask God, what are you trying to show me? Everything around you is falling apart. Your finances, your relationships, your plans, but somehow you still feel peace. That's not normal. That's supernatural. That's God saying, I got you. He's speaking through that peace, reminding you that no matter what it looks like, he's still in control. Ever been running late and then find out you just missed a major accident? Ever had a plan fall apart only for something better to come along? That's divine intervention. Stop cursing the inconvenience and start recognizing that sometimes God is literally blocking you from something harmful or guiding you to something greater. Listen to me. When you randomly feel the need to pray, do it. When you suddenly feel like you need to change your plans, move. That's not random. That's God speaking directly to your spirit. Too many times we hesitate, we brush it off, and we miss the breakthrough. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. When God nudges you, respond. Family, stop waiting for a booming voice from the sky. Stop looking for writing on the wall. God is speaking to you right now through your body, your mind, your circumstances. You just have to wake up and pay attention. So today I challenge you, listen differently, move boldly, trust fully, because when you recognize the way God speaks, you stop wondering and you start walking in your purpose. That deep, unshakable feeling inside of you, the one that keeps nagging at your spirit, the one that makes no sense to your logic but refuses to leave, is not just intuition. It's not just a random thought. It's something greater. It's the voice of God whispering to you, guiding you, warning you, leading you toward the path you are meant to walk. The problem is, too often people doubt it. They ignore it. They rationalize it away. They tell themselves it's just nerves, just overthinking, just a coincidence. But if you take a step back and look at the moments in your life when that feeling was strongest, you will start to see the pattern. Think about the times when you felt like something was off about a situation or a person. Maybe you were about to make a big decision and everything on the outside seemed right, but something in your gut said, no, don't do it. Maybe you ignored it, went forward anyway, and later realized why you should have listened. That's not just hindsight. That was a divine warning. When God speaks through your gut, it's his way of leading you before your eyes can even see the reason why. You may not have the facts, you may not have all the details, but he sees everything and he's trying to nudge you in the right direction. There are moments in life when you meet someone new and everything seems perfect. They check every box. They say all the right things, but something inside of you doesn't feel at ease. You can't explain it, but deep down, there's a resistance, a quiet whisper that says, this isn't it. But because everything looks good on paper, you push past it. You silence the feeling, and then months or years later, the truth comes out and you realize that the feeling you had in your gut was right all along. That wasn't fear. That wasn't insecurity. That was God trying to save you from something before you even knew what was coming. Then there are times when that same gut feeling pushes you forward instead of holding you back. Maybe you're afraid to take a leap, afraid to start something new, afraid to step outside your comfort zone. But deep inside, there's this pull, a persistent, undeniable knowing that you're meant to move. Everything around you might be telling you to stay put, to play it safe, but inside there's a stirring. You feel restless. You feel uneasy staying where you are. You feel like something greater is calling you. That's not just ambition. That's not just a dream. That's God planting something inside of you that refuses to be ignored. The problem is most people hesitate when they feel that pull. They want confirmation. They want a sign. They want everything to make perfect sense before they take the step. But that's not how faith works. Faith requires movement before the proof. Faith requires you to trust what God is saying in your spirit, even when your circumstances don't match up yet. That gut feeling that won't let go, that's the sign. That's the proof. That's God saying, I've already shown you, now trust me. But trusting that feeling doesn't always come easy. Society teaches us to rely on logic, to follow the facts, to make decisions based only on what we can see and measure. But God doesn't operate like that. His ways are higher. His vision is beyond what we can comprehend. And that's why he speaks to us in ways that go beyond logic. That's why he plants things in our spirit before we can see them with our eyes. That's why he gives us that gut feeling, that inner knowing, because he's preparing us for what's ahead before we even realize we need it. There are people who look back on their lives and regret the moments when they didn't listen. They remember the times they felt uneasy about a decision, but went ahead anyway. They remember the warnings they ignored. They remember the gut feelings they dismissed, only to later wish they had paid attention. And then there are the people who trusted it, who followed that quiet whisper, who made a move even when it didn't make sense, and later realized they were exactly where they needed to be. That's the difference between walking in alignment with God's voice and walking in alignment with your own logic. Sometimes that gut feeling will tell you to let go of something that feels good right now. It'll tell you to walk away from a job, from a friendship, from an opportunity that looks great on the outside but isn't meant for you. It'll tell you to step away before the damage happens, before the pain comes, before the fallout occurs. And it won't always make sense at the moment, but if you trust it, if you have the courage to listen, you'll see later why it was necessary. Other times, that feeling will tell you to take a risk, to step into something new, to walk through a door that seems too big for you. It'll feel uncomfortable, it'll stretch you, it'll challenge everything you thought you knew, but if you trust it, if you take the step, even when you're afraid, you'll realize that God was preparing you for something greater all along. The truth is, God's voice isn't always loud. He doesn't always speak through grand signs and wonders. Most of the time, he speaks through the still, small voice inside of you, the one that tugs at your spirit, the one that nudges you in the right direction, the one that gives you peace when you're on the right path and unrest when you're not. And if you learn to listen to that voice, if you learn to trust that gut feeling instead of doubting it, you'll start to see how perfectly he's been guiding you all along. You prayed for this opportunity. You worked hard, you showed up, gave it everything you had, and just when you thought it was going to happen, the door slammed in your face. You didn't just want it, you needed it. You convinced yourself it was yours. You planned for it. You saw your future in it, and now it's gone. The rejection letter came. The call never did. They chose someone else. And you're standing there confused, frustrated, maybe even angry. You're asking God why. You're questioning everything. You're wondering if you did something wrong. But what if the rejection wasn't a punishment? What if the closed door wasn't a failure? What if it was protection? What if it was God shifting you because he knew something you didn't? You see, when we want something badly, we focus so much on our desires that we forget to ask if it's aligned with God's plan. We assume that because it looks good, it must be right. Because it makes sense to us, it must be the right move. But God doesn't work based on what looks good in the moment. He operates based on what's best for your future. He sees the things you don't. He knows the challenges ahead. He knows the things that would have hurt you. He knows the things that would have taken you off course. And when a door closes, it's not because he's withholding from you, it's because he's redirecting you. Think about the times in your life when something didn't work out and you were devastated. Maybe it was a job you were certain was meant for you. Maybe it was a relationship you thought would last forever. Maybe it was an opportunity that felt perfect, but despite all your effort, it didn't happen. And at the time, you were crushed. You couldn't see past the disappointment. You couldn't understand why, but then time passed and new opportunities came. Something better showed up, something that aligned more with who you are and where you're supposed to be. And suddenly it made sense. Suddenly you realized that if you had gotten what you wanted back then, you wouldn't be where you are now. That's how God works. He doesn't just give us what we ask for, he gives us what we need. And sometimes what we need is a closed door. Sometimes what we need is a delay. Sometimes what we need is to be redirected so that we don't settle for less than what he has planned for us. The problem is, in the moment, we don't see it that way. We take rejection personally. We let disappointment shake our faith. We start doubting ourselves, doubting our worth, doubting God's plan. We focus so much on what didn't happen that we miss what he's trying to do. But think about this. What if that closed door saved you from something? What if that job would have drained you, would have taken you further away from your purpose? What if that relationship would have held you back, kept you in a cycle of pain and confusion? What if that opportunity wasn't meant to be yours because God had something greater in store? It's easy to believe when things are going our way, but true faith is trusting even when they aren't. Today, we're going to faithfully entrust this while going our way. True faith is believing that if God said no, it's because there's a better yes ahead. Look at some of the most successful people in the world. Look at the ones who changed history, who made an impact, who walked in their purpose. Almost every single one of them faced rejection. Almost every single one of them had doors slammed in their face. They were told no, they were overlooked, they were counted out. And if they had given up at the first closed door, they would have never stepped into the greatness that was waiting for them. But they didn't quit. They didn't let rejection define them. They didn't see a closed door as the end. They saw it as redirection. And because of that, they ended up exactly where they were meant to be. You have to start shifting your perspective. Instead of seeing a closed door as failure, start seeing it as guidance. Instead of letting disappointment paralyze you, start letting it push you forward. When something doesn't work out, instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Start asking, what is God trying to show me? When a door closes, don't waste your time banging on it, trying to force it open. Instead, turn around and look for the door he's already preparing for you. The reason so many people stay stuck is because they refuse to let go of what wasn't meant for them. They keep trying to reopen doors that God already closed. They keep replaying the past, questioning what they could have done differently instead of trusting that if it didn't happen, it wasn't supposed to. They let one rejection steal their motivation. They let one failure convince them that they're not good enough. But that's not how God works. He doesn't close one door without already having another one in place. He doesn't take something away without having something greater in store. But you'll never see it if you keep looking back. Some of the greatest blessings come disguised as disappointments. Some of the biggest breakthroughs come after the hardest rejections. The moment you stop seeing a closed door as a setback and start seeing it as a setup, your whole life changes. The moment you stop trying to control everything and start trusting that if God removed it, it wasn't meant for you, you free yourself to step into something bigger. The moment you stop fighting for things that weren't meant for you and start moving toward the things that are, you align yourself with a path that was designed specifically for you. Too many people give up too soon. Too many people let a single no make them quit. But if you only knew what was on the other side of that rejection, you wouldn't waste another second feeling discouraged. If you only knew the doors that God was preparing to open for you, you wouldn't spend another moment crying over the one that closed. If you only knew the way he was working behind the scenes, protecting you, guiding you, setting you up for something bigger, you wouldn't doubt. You would trust, you would believe, you would keep moving forward, knowing that every no is just leading you closer to the right yes. You wake up and something feels different. You go through your day, but there's this weight on you, this feeling you can't shake. You try to ignore it, but it keeps coming back. You feel unsettled, uncomfortable, almost like you're outgrowing something, but you don't know what. It's not anxiety, it's not fear, it's something deeper. It's restlessness. And it's not random. It's a sign that God is shifting you, moving you, calling you into something new. The problem is most people don't recognize it. They try to push it down, distract themselves, pretend it's not there. But the more they fight it, the stronger it gets. That restlessness is not there to torment you. It's there to wake you up. It's there to push you out of comfort. It's there to disrupt the routine that's keeping you stagnant. It's there to get your attention because God is preparing you for something greater, but you can't step into it if you're too comfortable where you are. Comfort is dangerous because it keeps people stuck. It makes them settle for less. It convinces them that where they are is good enough, even when deep down they know they were made for more. And that's why God will stir something in your spirit before he moves you. That's why he will make you restless before he shifts you. Because if you felt too comfortable, you wouldn't be willing to leave. Think about the times in your life when you felt this way before. Maybe you were in a job that once felt exciting but started to feel draining. Maybe you were in a relationship that once brought you joy but started to feel like it was holding you back. Maybe you were in a season where everything looked fine on the outside, but inside you knew something had to change. That wasn't just a phase. That wasn't just a random feeling. That was God stirring something in your spirit, letting you know that the season you were in was coming to an end. People ignore this feeling because change is uncomfortable. They convince themselves they're just overthinking. They tell themselves they should be grateful and stop wanting more. They settle for what's familiar, even when they know it's no longer fulfilling them. And then they wonder why they feel stuck. They wonder why they feel unmotivated, uninspired, drained. It's because they were never meant to stay where they are. It's because they were meant to grow, to evolve, to step into something bigger. But instead of moving with the shift, they resist it. Instead of embracing the restlessness as a sign to prepare for what's next, they fight to stay where they are. God will never force you to move, but he will make it uncomfortable for you to stay the same. He will let the things that once satisfied you stop fulfilling you. He will let the places that once felt safe start feeling too small. He will let the opportunities that once excited you start feeling like limitations. Not because he's punishing you, but because he's calling you to more. And until you recognize that restlessness as a sign, you'll keep running in circles. You'll keep feeling like something is missing. You'll keep wondering why you feel stuck, when the truth is, God has already been showing you it's time to shift. Sometimes that restlessness will feel like frustration. You'll start feeling irritated by things that never used to bother you. You'll feel drained by conversations that once felt normal. You'll feel like you don't fit in places where you used to feel comfortable. And if you don't understand what's happening, you'll think something is wrong with you. You'll try to force yourself to be happy in a place that no longer fits you. You'll try to convince yourself to stay in a season that God is calling you to leave. But the more you resist, the worse it gets. The more you fight the shift, the more frustrated you become. Other times, that restlessness will feel like a hunger for something more. You'll start dreaming bigger. You'll start imagining a different life. You'll start feeling pulled toward new ideas, new opportunities, new places. And at first, it might not make sense. You might feel guilty for wanting more. You might wonder why you can't just be content. But that hunger isn't there to frustrate you. It's there to fuel you. It's there to push you into the next level of your purpose. It's there to remind you that you were never meant to stay in one place forever. When God is shifting you, he will make staying the same feel impossible. He will remove things from your life that no longer serve you. He will close doors that you thought were supposed to stay open. He will take away the comfort that made you feel safe because he knows if you stay there, you'll never grow. But the problem is most people don't see it as a shift. They see it as a loss. They see it as things falling apart when really things are falling into place. Because before God moves you, he will always remove the things that can't go with you. That's why some friendships start to fade. That's why certain opportunities dry up. That's why things that once worked out so easily start feeling like a struggle. It's not always the enemy. Sometimes it's God redirecting you. Sometimes it's him making sure you don't carry old habits, old relationships, old mindsets into a new season. But if you don't recognize it, you'll try to hold on to things that were meant to be released. You'll try to fix things that were never meant to be repaired. You'll try to force things that God already told you to let go of. The hardest part about a shift is that it doesn't always come with clear instructions. God doesn't always tell you exactly what's next. He just lets you know that where you are is no longer it. And that's where faith comes in. That's where trust comes in. Because when you feel that restlessness, when you feel that pull, you won't always have all the answers. You won't always see the full picture, but you will know deep in your spirit that staying where you are is no longer an option. That's the moment where you have to decide, will you trust the feeling or will you ignore it? Will you listen to the nudge or will you pretend it's not there? Will you take the leap even when you don't have all the details? Or will you let fear convince you to stay in a place that no longer fits you? Because God will shift you, but he won't force you. He will give you the sign, but you have to take the step. He will make you restless, but you have to be willing to move. And until you do, that feeling won't go away. It will keep growing. It will keep pressing on you. It will keep reminding you that you were meant for more. You ever had a moment where everything around you just started to feel off? A moment where no matter how much you tried to move forward, it felt like you were walking through mud? It wasn't always like this. There was a time when things were flowing, when the people around you felt right, when the opportunities felt aligned. But now something has shifted. The same people you used to laugh with don't feel the same. The same spaces that used to give you energy now drain you. The same plans that once excited you don't seem fulfilling anymore. It's like an invisible weight is pressing on you, like a wall has been placed in front of you that you can't break through. That's not random. That's not a coincidence. That's a divine sign. That's God putting up roadblocks because you are not supposed to go in the direction you're trying to force. That resistance you feel, it's not the enemy. It's not bad luck. It's God closing the doors that no longer serve you. It's him redirecting your steps so that you don't waste time chasing something that isn't meant for you. The problem is most people don't recognize divine resistance for what it is. They get frustrated. They think something is wrong. They think they just need to push harder, fight more, try again. They start questioning why things feel so difficult when before it was so easy. But that's exactly the point. When you are in alignment with God's will, there is grace. It doesn't mean life is perfect, but there is a flow. There is a peace. There's a confirmation in your spirit that tells you this is the right path. But when you are moving in the wrong direction, when you are trying to hold on to something that God is asking you to release, he will allow obstacles to show up. He will allow certain things to stop working. He will allow people to leave, not to hurt you, but to help you There are people right now fighting battles they were never meant to fight, struggling to keep relationships alive that God has already called them to walk away from, trying to force success in a place where they are no longer assigned, exhausting themselves, trying to make something work when God has already shut the door. And they're wondering why they feel drained. They're wondering why they feel stuck. It's because they're fighting against God's will instead of flowing with it. Sometimes he will let you hit a wall just to get your attention. He will let certain plans fall apart because if they had worked, they would have led you away from your purpose. He will allow relationships to end because if they had continued, they would have pulled you away from him. He will allow frustration to build up so that you finally stop and ask, God, what are you trying to show me? And when you finally ask that question, when you finally stop trying to force your own way and start paying attention, that's when clarity comes. That's when you realize that every roadblock was actually a blessing. Every setback was actually a setup for something better. Every no was actually leading you to a greater yes. It's hard to accept this when you're in the middle of it. It's hard to trust the process when all you see are closed doors. But think about it. How many times in your past have you been frustrated over something that didn't work out only to realize later that it was for your good? How many times have you looked back and said, I'm so glad that didn't happen the way I wanted it to? If you take a step back, you'll see the pattern. You'll see that every delay, every disruption, every roadblock was actually divine protection. Maybe you thought that job was the dream, but God knew it would have drained you, would have boxed you into something that wasn't your true calling. Maybe you thought that relationship was the one, but God saw the hidden battles, the heartbreak that was waiting down the line, and he removed you before you got too deep. Maybe you thought your life was supposed to go in a certain direction, but God blocked it because he had something greater in store. The longer you hold on to something that is not meant for you, the longer you delay what is. The longer you fight to keep doors open that God has already closed, the longer you stay stuck in a place you were never meant to remain. That's why you feel tired. That's why you feel lost. That's why no matter how hard you try, something always feels off because you are trying to stay in a season that has already ended. God is not the author of confusion. He is a God of order, a God of purpose, a God who will not allow you to settle in a place that is beneath what he has planned for you. So when you feel that resistance, when you feel like nothing is working the way it used to, don't just try to force your way through it. Stop and ask him what he's doing. Stop and ask him where he's leading you, because sometimes the resistance isn't there to stop you, it's there to shift you. There are people who stayed in situations too long because they ignored the signs. They saw the doors closing, but they kept pushing them open. They felt the energy shift, but they ignored it. They saw the warning signs, but they convinced themselves things would change. And instead of moving when God told them to move, they waited until things completely fell apart, until they had no choice but to leave, until the pain forced them out of a place they were never meant to stay. But then there are the people who paid attention, who recognized when the grace was gone, who felt the resistance and instead of fighting it, surrendered to it. And those are the people who didn't just experience loss, they experienced transformation. They didn't just go through a setback, they were set up for something greater. They stepped into something bigger than what they had planned because they trusted God's redirection instead of fighting it. If you are in a season where things feel heavy, where nothing seems to be working, where the places that once felt like home now feel foreign, pay attention. If the doors that used to open easily are now shut, if the relationships that used to feel aligned now feel distant, if the things that used to bring you peace now bring you frustration, don't just push through, pray through. Ask God what he's doing. Ask him where he's leading you, because the resistance isn't there to hurt you, it's there to help you. It's there to protect you from settling for less. It's there to prepare you for what's next. It's there because God is moving and he needs you to move with him. There comes a moment when everything around you starts to feel different. It's not just in your mind, it's in your body. You start feeling it deep inside like an energy shift, like something is trying to get your attention. You're going through your daily life, but all of a sudden you start noticing things you didn't notice before. It's subtle at first. Maybe your body starts feeling heavier in certain places, like a weight pressing down on you. Maybe you start feeling a sudden discomfort in situations that used to feel normal. Maybe you get chills at random moments, but not because you're cold, because something in your spirit is responding to something unseen. Your body is not just a machine that carries you through life. It's a vessel, a receiver, an instrument that picks up on divine messages before your mind fully understands them. When God speaks, sometimes he doesn't use words. Sometimes he speaks through feelings, through sensations, through physical reactions that seem random, but are actually signals. But most people don't recognize these signs for what they are. They ignore them. They explain them away. They tell themselves it's just stress, it's just fatigue, it's just a coincidence. But it's not just that. It's something greater trying to reach you. Think about those moments when you walked into a room and everything in you told you that something was off. You couldn't explain it, but you felt it. Maybe your chest got tight. Maybe your stomach started twisting. Maybe the energy in the room felt so heavy that you suddenly got a headache. That wasn't your imagination. That wasn't just you being sensitive. That was discernment speaking through your body, letting you know that something in that space wasn't right. God was warning you before you even saw the reason why. But the question is, did you listen? There are times when God will use your physical senses to get your attention. He will make you feel uneasy about a situation, not because you're paranoid, but because your spirit is picking up on something that your eyes can't see. How many times have you ignored that feeling only to find out later that you should have trusted it? How many times have you pushed past your body's warning signs only to realize that they were trying to protect you? Sometimes it's not just about danger. Sometimes it's confirmation. Have you ever been in a situation where you were praying about something and suddenly you got chills all over your body? Maybe you were listening to a sermon and a certain word hit you so hard that your whole body reacted. Maybe you were talking to someone and they said something that sent a wave of energy through you, like a shock to your system. That wasn't random. That was God's way of saying, pay attention, this is for you. There are moments when the presence of God is so strong that your body can't help but respond. Your heart starts racing, your skin tingles, a wave of peace washes over you in a way that you can't even explain. You might have been anxious all day, but suddenly you feel this overwhelming calm, like everything is going to be okay. That's not just your emotions changing, that's a divine encounter. That's God stepping into your moment and letting you know that he is with you. Your body reacts not just to places and words, but to people. Have you ever been around someone and suddenly felt drained, like just being near them was pulling energy out of you? You weren't doing anything physically exhausting, but after spending time with them, you felt exhausted. That's not a coincidence. That's your spirit recognizing something before your mind can put it into words. Some people carry peace and some people uplift your spirit and some people deplete it. When God is speaking to you, he will allow your body to feel the difference. He will show you who is for you and who is against, not always with words, but with how you feel when they are around. Think about the moments when you were making a decision and everything inside of you started resisting it. Maybe you were about to take a job that looked great on paper, but every time you thought about it, you felt nauseous, anxious, uneasy. Maybe you were about to enter a relationship, but something in your chest felt tight every time you considered it. Maybe you were about to sign a deal, but your hands started shaking, your breath got shallow, your whole body felt like it was saying, no. That wasn't fear, that wasn't overthinking, that was God trying to stop you before you stepped into something that wasn't meant for you. And then there are the moments when everything inside of you says, go. You might not have all the answers. You might not know how it's going to work out. But when you think about that dream, when you think about that next step, something in your spirit leaps. Your energy shifts. You feel excitement, not just in your mind, but in your bones. You feel pulled, not by fear, but by purpose. That's confirmation. That's God showing you that this is the way forward. The problem is so many people ignore these physical signs because they've been taught to rely only on logic. They tell themselves, if I can't explain it, it must not be real. But faith doesn't always come with explanations. Sometimes faith is a feeling. Sometimes faith is trusting what your body is telling you before you even understand why. God gave you your physical senses for a reason. He didn't just give you eyes to see and ears to hear. He gave you an internal radar, a built-in signal system that lets you know when something is right or wrong. That's why your body reacts before your mind catches up. That's why you feel things before you can explain them, because God is always speaking, but sometimes he speaks through what you feel rather than what you hear. How many times have you prayed for direction, but ignored the way your body was already telling you the answer? How many times have you asked God for a sign, but dismissed the discomfort, the chills, the peace, the pull, because you wanted something more obvious? He's been speaking, he's been showing you, but you have to listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. Some of the biggest mistakes people make happen when they ignore these signals. They force themselves into situations where their body already told them not to go. They stay in relationships that make them feel heavy. They take paths that make them feel drained. They convince themselves that they're just being dramatic, just being emotional, just being irrational. And then later, when everything falls apart, they realize that their spirit knew all along. But there are also people who trust it, who listen when their body says, this isn't right, who move when their spirit leaps with excitement, who recognize that when God wants to guide you, he will use every part of you, including your physical self, to make sure you don't miss it. If you've been feeling something in your body, if you've been noticing shifts, if you've been sensing changes without knowing why, don't dismiss it. Pay attention. Ask God what he's trying to show you, because sometimes the answer you've been waiting for has already been given. You just haven't realized that he's been speaking through you all along.